Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So I made this video and I forgot to post it. And there's been a big thing that's happened in the, heartfulness cult thing, which is it pertains to everything I'm talking about here with this channel. And so I'm gonna add another voiceover at the end of this, and then this will be up. Today's Thursday, May 30th, so it'll be up. Tomorrow is at the first. That's probably the first of June on whatever Friday. And I have a video coming out on my other channel, but I want to start making a video, because that other channel is just not bringing in much money. I've been wanting to do a video about how they owe the anti-vaxxers not only apology, but just admitting you're wrong. All these people, right? And, there's stuff coming out about that. It's just there for everyone to see. So I want to put that up on my Apocalypse channel over the weekend. So I actually was going to do less, but I ended up sort of, because of what I'm doing here with this channel, talking about the stuff with the Pockets of the Future movement. And then all of it, it's all kind of coming together. There's a lot of, what I think is important content. But anyways, here's a voiceover I did 2 days ago maybe, and then I'll add an ending to this as well. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. I just had a few leftover thoughts about the whole Pockets of the Future movement. I'm going to put this in some sort of a playlist. I don't know what I'm going to call it, but something. So if you want to be a person that makes the world a better place and helps other people, it's very difficult to assess what other people need. If you want to be a really good parent or a grandfather, grandmother or something, or, an elder, or you want to be a counselor, or you want to, work as a, some kind of a healer or whatever, capacity to help people. With your goal is to help other people, right? Which right now isn't my goal. Like at one point, that was my goal in terms of being a counselor and then, these other things. But if you are committed to helping other people, this channel helps people according to other people, according to some of the viewers, they've been helped by the channel. But if you really want to help other people, you have to assess what they need and not what they want. And I never really understood that till I got older, and it's a Sajmark system philosophy, because for the most part, when people think about helping other people, it's about making somebody else happy and alleviate their pain, right? And most people, when they're seeking help, when they want somebody to help them, it's to alleviate their pain. It's to alleviate their suffering, to alleviate their, whatever struggles they're going through, their problems, to help people solve their problems, get rid of their problems. And it's almost always about addressing the symptoms of the problems and not the real problem itself. And so when a person comes into a counseling situation, they have something that is very unpleasant in their life and something that's making them miserable. And it's a symptom of wrong living. It's a symptom of them being disconnected from their soul and their soul's path and not understanding why they're truly here on planet Earth. And so in a pleasure-based society, a society where you're supposed to be happy and indulging and enjoying life, and that pain is a problem, then you're supposed to be seeking pleasure and minimizing pain, right? And there's all these ways of, painkillers. There's things to stop you from feeling pain, whatever the, whatever capacity. But in the Sajmark system, your pain is your gift because, deep down in every person, in terms of their soul, it is yearning. There's a pain of separation, the pain of love, right? When there's true love there, you feel the pain of love, losing a loved one or being separated from a loved one. But in terms of its true nature, it's separation from God. That deep down there is this feeling of yearning and longing to be back, to merge back in the source. And that's what your soul, that's the nature of your soul. And that's for everybody. Everybody's soul feels that. And so your soul and your ego have two different orientations to the world. The ego is pleasure-based, and it's looking to, bolster itself and make itself feel better about, to feel big and important and, whatever, powerful, whatever it is, right? Your ego wants to, be something. Your ego wants to, express itself in some way. Where your soul just longs to be united with its beloved, which is God, and anything to do with love and the expression of, some sort of longing to be one with the, united in love in some way, right? And that's the nature of your soul. And so you see people when they have lost a loved one, they can often become saints because that pain of love is so there inside them. Like if you ever felt the pain of love, losing somebody you love or being separated from someone you love. And that's what they say. Separation makes the heart grow fonder. And so I experienced this longing to be, merged back into the source for about like 3 months. Maybe it was a month. I don't even remember the time frame. But I couldn't function. Like it was, I had read about it in the Sark system, and life became like uninteresting. Like anything in life, I was not enjoying. Like whatever physical pleasures or whatever, things that you look forward to, and all the things that make you happy, and or just any of the things. Like even small level problems or miseries everything seemed insignificant, and I could really function. Like the motivation I had to get up and um, perform my whatever it was I was doing at the time, being a dad and all these things, husband, all those things that were going on. If it was we were farming, these things. Like I just really, it was just laborious there was no motivation for me to go do the work because I just felt this pain and whatever it was. And it wasn't a bad thing, but I couldn't function. Like I said, it was hard for me to function, and it's still there. Like I know it's still there. Once in a while, I can feel it, briefly. But it's like I said, I couldn't function. But I understood it to be a real thing. Like there's things in the Sark system, and this was one of them that I experienced. That I can say from my own personal experience. Yeah, this is true, right? This is not just some bogus teaching. It's an actual condition, and when you experience it, it's transformational in the sense that your whole orientation to life has changed, right? So this is one of the reasons that it said in Sark system, there's maxim 5, take miseries as divine blessings for your own good and be thankful. And so the reason is because the pain is the point. Like people think that, when you have some spiritual experience, you're going to be in some nirvana type situation. That's why people will use drugs, like ayahuasca or, DMT or whatever these things are. LSD and these things, hallucinogenics, and are looking for some, expansive spiritual experiences that, are pleasurable in some way. The idea that, things are going to be ultimately pleasurable, taking drugs for the idea of, expansion of consciousness. And, that's part of your spiritual experience, but it's really the pain of love and the craving to be one with God that keeps you going. And, it's the opposite of our society. Our society is like this situation where, they don't want kids to experience pain. Like everyone, that's why they started giving trophies to losers, right? That they would have competition and everybody gets a trophy because they didn't want any kid who sucked and it wasn't good, or, a team that wasn't good, to feel the misery of being a loser, and, to be, everyone was a winner, right? Everyone has a trophy. Everybody's great. You just have to participate, right? And, this culture has grown up with that. Each culture has gotten weaker. And the parents not wanting the kid to feel any sort of discomfort or pain or any of these things. Anything that you think is okay. And, changing math so that math, if you just kind of got it right, you get the right answer. And let's not hurt the kid's self-esteem and, these things. And trying to avoid pain at all costs. And you can't do that because that's, why you're here. You're here to have issues. You're here to have problems. Like you're here to overcome obstacles, right? And, they're constantly being thrown at you. And so, for your own good, right? And if you're off your path, if you're off your soul's path, then the problems are corrective and are there to help you regain your, true purpose. And so, most people come to you, or most people that you know, and you ask them what they want in terms of change, and they want something to change in their life so they don't feel bad. And that's why people take drugs, to alleviate their psychological depravity or issues or whatever it is, psychological aberration, their pathology, and whatever it is, but not realizing that it's because they're not living the life that they should, and they're not aligned with their soul, and they're not, on their soul's path, and so they look for people to pamper them, and it just gets worse with each generation. There's an overall human weakness because people don't want what's good for them. They don't want to have something that's, there for their spiritual upliftment. And so if you talk to somebody, you wouldn't really get a sense of what to do to help them, right? And, what they want from you isn't going to help them. Like most people, what they're asking for is just going to, is some sort of a pain pill to alleviate the symptoms of something that's much deeper in their system, right? So in terms of the truth community and the Pockets of the Future movement, and where my channel, differs from other, whatever it is, the majority of people wake up to the fact that the people who run the system are not good people, right? They're not, good leaders, and they're taking people away from their true path and their true nature. They're taking humanity in the wrong direction. So it became, the truth community at first for everybody is about taking down the elite, right? This is the defunct Alex Jones shill model of information war and waking everybody up and, changing the system for the better, taking down the deep state. This is the remedial idea from truthers, people who have the most remedial, entry level. There's bad people that are running the world, and the rest of us are good people. If we take down the bad people, we can make this into some sort of utopia, which is not the case, because the system that we're 100% dependent on is going against the divine forces and the will of God, right? It's a pleasure-based system that's a distraction from your true nature and your true purpose. It disconnects you from God and your soul. Your religion sucks. Your economy is, addictive. It's, based in addiction. And all of it is taking humanity in the wrong direction, and we're going along with it. So it has nothing to do with the people running the system, because they're just an expression of a desire-based humanity, right? The mob, the collective, humanity's desires, right? Desire for whatever available in terms of the stuff that's, whether it be drugs or sex or, food or whatever it is, right? All the pleasurable things that the world has to offer, people go for it, right? It doesn't, it sells itself. People are easily exploited because of their desires, their greed, their selfishness, these things. You ever see the movie Flim Flam Man? There's a scene in the movie where the guy who's a Flim Flam Man, he's got a young kid working with him. This actor named Slim Pickens, who used to be skinny and then sort of wasn't. And they pick up a wallet at the same time. And the guy gets all of Slim Pickens' money for a check that's in the wallet. And Slim Pickens thinks he's going to go cash the check, and he thinks he's scammed the people. And they see him running away, like they're going to meet and split the check and the money. And Slim Pickens is running away. He pretends to walk away like he's going to the bank to cash the check and bring it back and split it with the other guys. But he's running away, and the Flim Flam Man says to his apprentice, it's the greed that always gets him, right? Gambling is one of the biggest industries. People just giving their money away. The odds are against you. And even if you win, they tax the crap out of it. It's like 45% tax or something. So there's no way of winning. The odds are against you, and the taxes, you're going to get taxed on it. All these things. And so why is Vegas one of the most, if you go live in that area, the parks that they have and the services they have and the school systems, it's just loaded with gambling money, right? People coming there and working all hard all year round to come to Vegas and blow their money on gambling and shows and overpriced restaurants and things and whatever. And so overpriced hotels. They can't wait to throw their money away. And so this is the problem with human beings. And, the ancient Indian saints, the spiritual beings, people used to live a lot longer, and they could do these austerities where they pray to some cosmic functionary, some god, or some, whatever it was, Vishnu, or, the god of preservation, or Shiva, the god of destruction, or whatever. And they would do these austerities where they would, not eat for like years and meditate and pray and things like this. And if they did it long enough, they were granted a boon. And whatever they asked for, the higher developed spiritual being had to give them. And 100% of the time, whatever they asked for turned against them, right? Like there was one guy, he asked for the ability to just touch somebody and kill him. And so he was given it by Shiva, like whatever, he was praying to Shiva. And he was running around trying to touch the gods and, kill everything, right? He was just killing everything in his path. He had this touch of death. And so Vishnu was like, why'd you do that? He said, well, I don't know. The two gods were talking, Vishnu and Shiva. And Vishnu said, why'd you do that? And Shiva said, I had to. It's a freaking stupid rules, right? They had to give him whatever they wanted, right? And so Vishnu appeared as a beautiful woman and said, and the guy wanted to be with her, and he said, well, you gotta wash yourself first. The guy went and started to wash his hair, and he touched himself, and he killed himself, right? And so this is an example of these boons that people ask for. Wealth, these people go see the genies, the jinn, these magical beings and things, and they were given these 3 wishes or whatever. The wishes always go south. They always, people win the lottery and, whatever it might be, and they become depressed. They're more miserable than they were before. And this is the nature of humanity, that people want something, and then when they get it, they realize it's not what they wanted, and it's made things worse. And so if you ask someone, how can I help you? What can I do for you? Or, what do you need? Or really, what do you want? And if you give it to them, things get worse. And so people don't know what they need. People don't know what's good for them. That's, self-evident. That's the problem. Humanity doesn't know what's good for it. And so I've seen this over and over again, that people walk away from something that's actually good for them because it's painful or it's difficult or it's, it's not giving them the, the good feelings of their egos, the things that the ego wants, right? And so that's why human beings don't inevitably spiritually fall, even if they rise up to high levels. They eventually go chase a waterfall, right? Don't go chasing waterfalls. Be happy with the ponds and the streams that you're used to, right? That stupid song. That people chase things that are ultimately self-destructive, and it's the wrong thing. Very few people find the pain inside of them, the divine longing to be one with the Creator and to go back to the source and follow that. And even if they do, you end up following it for a while, and something lures them off the path. That's why there's so few saints and so few spiritual people who are accomplished in some way, right? Because their egos find a way to pull them off the path. So it's not easy for someone to look at somebody else and see what somebody actually needs and help cultivate and create that for them. And that's what's offered the Sajmark system, and the master of the system was such a person. The 3 original masters would give people what they needed, not what they wanted, and would help chart a course and guide that person on the course of things that they had to go through, the obstacles and difficulties they had to go through to become a spiritual person. And I've benefited from that process. And so, I talked about this comment somebody left about, why is it so important that to master the system and you're connecting to God directly? Well, the only way to connect to God directly is to have some sort of a help, right? You need some, conscious sentient being that has accomplished the goal and has walked this path themselves and can guide you along the path, right? Not being worshipped, not being, something that you idolize, but somebody who can guide you along the path that they've successfully navigated. There's no field of activity where you don't need a good coach and you don't need some sort of training, and you can't get it from books. At some level, to get to the higher levels of anything, You need a coach. You need a teacher. You need somebody that can help you see beyond your limitations, your own personal limitations that you have, and help elevate you through things that you don't understand or don't really, since you haven't successfully done it, you haven't accomplished it yet. You need a roadmap, and you need someone to guide you along the map. And that's with everything. Like if you want to be a great athlete, you need some way along the line. You need great coaches. You need people to impart training to you and push you, and do all the things that you need to help you elevate you to a higher level. Right? There's a great movie. I can't think of the movie. It's a guy. It's called Whiplash, and it's about jazz like musicians and this teacher trying to make this guy great at being a jazz drummer, and he just mind f's. He mind manipulates and mind f's the guy, and just it's pretty brutal. But he's trying to, pull the greatness out of the person. Right? A good coach, a good person, does that. They find a way to pull the master within out of the master of the certain subject that you're doing, and help you master yourself and master the craft or your art that you have. And it's needed more in spirituality than anything else. That's why it's a big deal that the Sajmark system doesn't have a master anymore. Because, someone has to, the idea of the master in the system is they're reached a higher level, and there's an energy field at that highest level where they've merged back into the source, your soul's ultimate goal, and transmitting back from that place, transmitting from the goal, and the energy that's brought in, and all these things that come with it. And so that's what makes the system work, right? And because there isn't quality people like that, I mean, there's people who have reached saintly levels, have moved forward, and a lot of those people, Jesus and these other people, they didn't reach the goal, they didn't merge back into the source, and they were, ahead of everybody else, but their teaching's limited up to that point, and then it becomes books, and there's no living essence to the system. That's why there's so few saints, because there's very few people who are around to help guide you, past the inevitable obstacles and things you can't figure out on your own, and you think you've reached the goal, but you haven't, or whatever it is, right? I mean, and then, you reach the goal a little bit higher than everybody else, and people start worshiping you and treating you differently, and your ego starts to grow, and you stop thinking about God, and you start thinking about being, a godlike person yourself, and then there's a spiritual fall. That's the history of humanity and spirituality, where somebody rises up to a higher level, and then they forget about God, or they, whatever happens, they lose their way, and then they, it becomes a corrupted religion. And so there's very few people who have, reached the goal of human life and have merged back into the source. So, the thing that I do here to go along with that is I don't tell people what they want to hear. I tell people what the information that comes through me. And, because of that, I mean, people want to be pandered to, people want to be shouted out, people want to be, validated in some way or another. So that's the issue with my channel in terms of the audience itself. Very few people want, the truth in an unadulterated form, especially one that means that they have to change and grow and doesn't blame some, external evil doers like the so-called, elite or whatever it is, or Joe Biden or Trump or whatever it might be. People just want to think that it's a problem, that's somebody else's problem, that, if the person is thrown into jail or whatever, you're disempowered or whatever, the elite, that the problem will go away and that they don't have to do anything but get rid of somebody else's, somebody else in one capacity or another, group of people. Change the power dynamics, but they themselves don't have to change their desires, change their deviant, pathways and things in life. They're whatever it is, right? And that's why the truth community sucks, because, most people are desire-based in the truth community, and their egos get bigger and bigger because they think they're so much better than the sheeple, because they have a little bit of a consciousness that the sheeples don't have, but they still miss the overall point that they themselves have to change. And if you yourself can't see the things that you need to do and grow into, if you can't see the things that you need, that you don't even know what you want or what you need, and what would be best for you, you're in fact, you run away from the things that are best for you. You run away from your pain. You run away from your obstacles. These things. And so, how do you get that? Like, how do you change if you can't, if you don't know how to do it and are resistant to the change itself, right? And so that's the importance of somebody who's reached the goal and can see past the egotistical desires of other people and see what somebody else's soul needs and help to cultivate the path, help to, chart the course and make that happen on a spiritual level and on a material level. So you're given what you need to evolve spiritually. And that was what used to be offered in Sajmark's system. And since this guy Dodgy took over in the Heartfulness, system, it's gone. And that's a real bummer. Like, that's why I've talked about it, because there was something great and something transformational that was available. And now there's just the leftovers of what was, right? And the system still has a transmission and cleaning, and you can connect to it in a divine etheric way, connect directly, which is great, but, it lacks the oversight that you need. And one of the things that's difficult about being on a spiritual path is you have to learn to differentiate between your ego talking and your soul talking, like your inner voice or whatever. So it could be some, etheric demonic being or something, or some higher developed soul. But anything that's, on the spiritual level, it's hard to determine what's actually this, your spiritual side and what's the egotistical side. And when you're trusting, your inner reality and your inner voice, like, that's something we're having, a higher developed third party that can see through your bullshit, right? And your ego's BS, that you're able to, gain insight from somebody else's being able to see through it, right? That's why having a coach, a master, a teacher is really important. Anyways, just some follow-up thoughts. But this is, why I was saying people fail in terms of the pockets of the future, because, they want what they want, right? They want it on their terms. And we've been conditioned. It's hard for us all. Like, it's hard for me. It's hard for, anybody who's grown up in an American lifestyle to think about giving things up that, feel like almost necessities, things that are just habitual, things that are, like, without them you feel like you're starving to death or something, like you're something that you need to, it's sustenance. Some of our material system, the things that we do, like, imagine not having cars or not having grocery stores or not having, hot water, or not having, all the things that, or even running water in your house. And, think about having to go and find water every day, and, having to live at whatever temperature is, not having the ability to turn the temperature down at night when it's too hot, or turn the heat on when it's freezing, and, having to adjust to that, and walking around and, when, like, a winter coat and a hat and sleeping in that, and, waking up with your, breath condensing and your, things like this in the winter. Like, it's, there are things that we're just used to, and they're not small things. It's hard to break free from that, right? When you go camping, maybe it's great and you do those things, but you can't wait to get back, and, you know that you can finally go back and have a nice shower, bath, or whatever, and, sleep in a comfortable bed and whatever. And so, like, those things are, it's hard to break free from stuff like that. The comforts, right? And so, it's Babaji, the second master of the system. People would go visit his house, and it was, so, in terms of lifestyle, people sleeping on concrete floors, and it's cold and, dusty and dirty and no hot water, and not really, they had a well, people coming from America in the 60s and 70s or whatever it was, and there's no, there's well water, and, it's dirty, and the food isn't up to anybody's standards, and, no pillows and any kind of, modern day comforts, right? And he used to say minimum comforts, maximum spiritual evolution, right? Like, he'd wake everyone up at 4 a.m. They'd have these incredible meditations. These people would have these, divine experiences, but they were sleeping on newspapers, and, there's people coming up from southern India that they've never experienced cold before. Like, in southern India, it never gets below 70 degrees, even the coldest part of the year. And then they were going to a place that was 40, 50 degrees at night, and they had their clothes. They weren't, they didn't have any kind of warm clothes, and they would sleep on these concrete slabs. Like, I was in India, in Chennai, where it was real hot, and people came in, like, a group of people came in, like a whole state that was in a hotter place in India, and it was like 80 degrees, and this guy was walking around with a winter coat and earmuffs. It was like 86 degrees, right? And so people get conditioned to their environments, and then, when those things aren't available to them, it's very uncomfortable. Like, imagine being uncomfortable all the time. Like all the comforts that you have and luxuries that you have that you just feel entitled to are not there. It's hard to even conceive of doing anything, progressing spiritually or focusing on God and stuff when you're miserable like that. But then I guess at some point you have to, just to overcome the misery. So, there has to be a time where all these distractions that are available for people, all the things that prevent them from connecting to the divinity within them, all the things that help them avoid their own personal pain have to be removed. And so, really what we're waiting for is the collapse for any real chance to see what humanity is going to do. Because right now we know what human beings will do. They'll flirt with the idea that they want truth. They'll flirt with the idea that they want God. They'll work a little bit at it, and and they'll think they'll pat themselves on the back. But then they dive back into their depravity of the beastly system. And so when that's removed and there's no longer the distractions and people are worried about survival and they're, much more difficult times living in a practically in an uninhabitable world, maybe they'll be driven inward and connect to God just out of necessity. And we'll see. Like, that's the next big test. But in terms of the test right now, it's a failure. Human beings have failed over and over again because we're going in the wrong direction. And we know it, and we keep on going in the wrong direction. Okay, so there was, for those of you who've been following my Journey series and the Dodgy cult stuff, but even if you're not, it's easy to understand, kind of. But this guy, Dodgy, who I've been exposing as a fraud now for a while, and I'm really kind of the only person in the organization that has access to a platform and has the kind of skills that can, expose something like that. And of course, something I knew the guy, like I know the guy, right? And, I know the players and the people involved in the whole thing. So it's something more personal to me. It's what I do normally here, but then this is something that I'm just not reading about or, I know about from, the news or the internet, but this is actually something that I'm involved. It's personal, right? And so he started to say he was channeling messages to cancel his master's birthday. Like, he's been really big on canceling these big celebrations. And he ended up having to reverse that, and, he got caught being a dope again. So, to make a long story short, I put up a video on my other channel that's called "It's Finally Happening. Dodgy disobeys Babaji's imaginary orders and has Chargie's birthday gathering." And, kind of interesting for, even if you're not, aware of what's going on with it, I'm just making that public. But that has everything to do with what I'm talking about here. I've been talking about here for days and then the previous voiceover. And what I've been talking about is, well, let me just read this comment here. Somebody said to me, are you still in that mind space fullness cult ? And then a bunch of emojis laughing at me, like trying to mock me, right? And so this stooge thinks he's mocking me for doing the Sajmark system, which was the real deal, and then it turning into a cult, which is, sucky for everybody else, not so much for me. Like, yeah, it sucks for me, but everybody who didn't get to experience the Sajmark system. But I just want to say this about it, because I've been talking about this in various videos, but I want to say it in a different way. So, what I know about the Sajmark system, from my own personal experience, and, my trustworthiness in terms of years of content here, years of getting predictions right, years of being, very clear on things. I mean, I just have a track record, not because I've explained this over and over again, how I was a low-functioning person before doing Sajmark. Because of doing the system, it's helped me really be good at what I'm doing here in terms of my job. And, reliability and all these things. And so the thing I know most is how great the Sajmark system is. Somebody who had no purpose, someone who didn't know what they were doing with their life, somebody who was a perennial, career underachiever in every level of his life. And then what the system did for me and what I've seen it do for other people and what I see in terms of the need of humanity from all the stuff that I cover here and how bad people suck and we're going in the wrong direction. And Sajmark can take people in the right direction. And so I know that this can happen personally. like in ways that other people can't. I mean, many people who do the system didn't kind of have the kind of experiences and didn't have, the kind of contrast in their lives to where, they were functioning already. They were good at what they're doing. They were top of their class, and, they were doing okay in their life without Sagemark. And so, yeah, maybe it enhanced them a little bit, but not to the extent that it enhanced me. Where I was just an under-functioning person that couldn't do anything, couldn't sustain anything. And then doing the Sagemark system, I became a very highly functioning person and able to be very successful. I was failing in every level. Couldn't complete things, couldn't sustain things, couldn't, succeed. And I became a successful person in all kinds of different categories, stressful situations, because of the system. So it was very clear to me what I was without the system and what I was with it, and the transmission, the cleaning. And then just all the experiences I went through that I've documented in the Journey series, and how the system helped me get through those difficulties, but also evolve and change because of them, right? Because of the transmission cleaning helped me use these, what would have been problems or undesirable things, and transform them into blessings that helped me in my spiritual evolution. And so I know how great this is, and some of it is, some of the stuff I haven't experienced and some of the stuff hasn't happened yet, but I believe it will, like 100%. I've bet everything on this system, and it's delivered every time. So this isn't about this comment. This part's more about the people that I care about, the people who I want to receive this gift, right? But like these dopes that comment like this, he's mocking me because of his inability to see how great this thing is, right? It's like this thing is Noah's Ark of the future. And like I'm on the Ark and this guy's mocking me, as the floodwaters are engulfing him, right? I'm like, yeah, laugh away, MNF. Like, I'm glad he doesn't get it, right? There's lots of people I don't want to have it, right? Not that I want everyone to have it, but they just suck so bad and they can't get it anyway. So, I'm okay with it, right? Because if they could get it, they wouldn't be this douchey. They wouldn't suck so bad. But, it isn't for me to say. Like, my job is just to put it out there. And I don't care what happens. And the more things move forward, less faith I have in humanity. But I know what it is. And I know, unfortunately, the people who really love my content and really believe in me and trust me, and, whether personal relations I have with them or just, people are fans of the show, and they believe me on the Sagemark system, but they just, it's not them, it's not their samskaras, or they just don't, it's just not in them to feel it, or they're just not, I don't know. Like they should be able, they feel the transmission in my videos, they feel the benefit, and they're connected to the energy, but they just can't, I have that happen for them the way it's happened for me. And I know lots of people who've done the system for years, and I thought they were, on board with it the way I am, but they really weren't, because, they've let it collapse and fold under Dodgy like a card house. When they, if they had any critical thinking skills and if they were worth anything, they would have seen the system collapsing around them, right? But, that's the unfortunate thing. Like, I know what this thing is, and I can't, my experience can't, be translated into other people's experiences. People taking my word for it isn't good enough, right? People believing in what I say or believing in me and, trusting me isn't good enough. Like, they have to, have that experience for themselves. And, it's harder to do just with a Gratefulness meditation channel, without a living master, without these gatherings, without the, preceptors. There's so many things contributed to my really benefiting from the system. The preceptors, the books, interactions with the living master, big gatherings, they all contributed to my overall experience. And I got that experience and I feel blessed, but I can't provide that experience for other people, which is, which sucks for me. And that's, a big deal with the Pox of the Future, because the Heartfulness cult has become a parasitic organization that has destroyed something that was, at least organizationally, the transmission and cleaning and the method of the system still exists. But organizationally, they destroyed a great organization that was there helping people connect with the services, again for free. Like everybody knows about Jesus, but where were you when Jesus was alive, right? Were you one of his disciples? Because, there is past lives is a real thing. Where were all Jesus's followers when he was getting hung up on a cross? Where were they, right? Where were all the followers of all these other, Buddha and Krishna and Muhammad or any of these number of saints and people that you don't even hear about? Where are all their followers, right? There's usually just a handful because most people can't rise up to it, and many of them turn on the person themselves. And that's, a condemnation of humanity. So, like this planet's going to burn, and, it's, it's going to be bad, right? And I'm not laughing. I'm not laughing at a spite or anything. I'm just saying, like, that's where it's headed. And, there's a lot of dumbasses out there who are throwing gas on it right now, right? It's getting ready to burn, and instead of preparing for it and doing something to, lessen the situation, you're just pouring gas on the fire. And that's the failure of humanity. Anyways, I'm just going to wrap this one up here. You can't make people understand if they really don't want to understand, right? When they're functionally structured internally to not understand, when they're blocking any chance of understanding, because they're in everybody all the time. Your soul is craving to be one with the divine, this divine pain. It's there within you, right? People want to be with God. There's some part of you that's there, your soul, and it always wants to go back to the source. And so people have been ignoring their souls and ignoring the call and doing whatever they can to distract themselves and push that away. And so who am I to reverse that, right? Like I know how bad defensive mechanisms and psychological aberration can get in the way of people changing. I know it's how hard it is for people to change. If they don't want to change, you can't do anything about it, right? And I'm struggling myself, so it's just that. Like it's people don't want to understand. They'll purposely reinterpret things to suit their ego's comfort level, and that's what's happened on my channel all the time. Because people just don't want to get it. They don't want to. Ultimately they know they would have to change if they would open up and hear what what they needed to do, which is not a message from me, but it's from their soul and God, because it's something everybody knows. It's in every religion. It's out there in all these different places. It's not about the lack of knowledge or the lack of opportunity. It's the lack of willingness, right? It's a willingness to change, a willingness to evolve, a willingness to see the error of one's ways, the willingness of the ego to submit to the soul and its greater purpose. I mean, these are all the things. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano definitely pointing to the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.